The Late Night Legends podcast is meant for an adult audience only. It may contain sexually oriented content. Content may not be suitable for sensitive listeners. Please be aware of your surroundings. Listener discretion is advised. Watch out.
Welcome to Late Night Legends, where I have our hosts today, including Charlie, Kay, and Jessiy, who is going to be telling us about the Sierra sounds this evening. Before we get started, let's talk about the elephant who is not in the room currently. Frank is not here today. And we know that we pulled a little ha-ha tee-hee prank on you guys last week where we said that we fired him. We didn't actually fire him. It's just a coincidence he is not here tonight. So you have what you have and you will be happy about it. Do you understand me?
Charlie's the only guy.
Charlie is the only guy. We are legally obligated to have one man on the podcast for us to go live outside of Women's History Month. So thank you, Charlie, for being our sponsor.
I'm here to represent, a historically marginalized group, straight white men in this country, I'm a diversity hire. That's
yeah, I'm doing it with such skill and pride. I'm so happy that we have you here. I don't mean it that way. But the other things that we need to talk about is that next week, April 15th, we're talking about the horrors of Tax Day. Just kidding. We're talking about Atlantis. Though we should talk about the horrors of Tax Day.
I'm so sad I'm missing that episode. I've been dying to do Atlantis. I'll be in the Ozarks for the UFO conference, so I won't be here.
Nice. But I'm sure we'll be getting updates from Jessiy about that. And then the week after that, that is James' topic. And the week after that, we're getting the band back together. And we're going to do a send-off to Frank's single life by doing wedding superstitions and ghosty stories about weddings. So just to make sure he has everything checked in place so he has the luckiest marriage possible. I can already tell you I've done some research and he's messing up in some areas already.
Uh-oh.
So, it happens. It happens to the best of us. And then after that, we will be taking the week off to celebrate Frank. So we all get the week off, just like a President's Day for some businesses. We get Frank Day off. That being said, any personal news before we jump in? I have some stuff to share, but I'd like to hear from everyone else first and foremost.
Well, I'm gonna do this real quick. I'm giving a shout out to my friend Michelle, who got me this REM pod on Saturday. We went to a ghost hunt with Chris Fleming at Tinker Swiss Cottage in Rockford, and he had some equipment for sale, so she bought that for me to use, because I'm doing all this, cool stuff, she said. So it's going to get used a lot for my CE5s and for ghost hunts, so thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Do you want to describe, what a REM pod does?
Yeah, so I'm not going to turn it on, because it's going to drive you insane. So it pretty much has this antenna here that goes up and it emits an electromagnetic field. and anything that comes close to it will set it off with like lights and sounds. And then it also has a temperature gauge in it, so it feels the fluctuations of temperature and it'll go off. So we actually did get some yes/no questions answered from the Robert Tinker from the house there, because we said, like, you know, hit it once for yes, twice for no, and he was actually answering questions. And yes, cell phones can make it go off, but only if it's in like maybe a foot of it, and we were all like 3 or 4 feet away from it, and then it was going off by itself outside when nobody was around it. And you could also adjust the parameter of the electromagnetic field, I think, like to be bigger or smaller. I haven't played with that function yet because I've only been able to use it the once on Saturday, but so that's pretty much what a REM pod is. It's just seen in a lot of shows as well, like ghost shows and stuff.
Very, very cool. Thanks for sharing. And that's really exciting. I hope we get to hear more about your findings and your explorations with those fun tools and getting out there. Does anybody else want to share with the class? Any personal news? Cool. So, I survived an earthquake.
It's true.
At least slightly traumatized. Well, no. We've had like one earthquake before where I live in New Jersey. But that was like 15 years ago, and this one was bigger. The apartment shook, and several thoughts went through my mind, and one was that we were under attack, and then my like glass door didn't like blow out, so I was like, oh, I guess like it's just an earthquake, it's fine. To which I would say I went for the door frame because I heard that's where you go. I learned that from Cinderella Story, the movie with Hilary Duff. I feel like that's the most logical knowledge you could get. And like I wouldn't have known what to do because like none of the work or like town thought to send out hurricane. I keep calling it a hurricane because those are more common. Earthquake safety tips till after, which is like nice, and I understand you can't predict an earthquake, but like they were not useful after at all. We did get several notices about stop calling the police because they cannot do anything about it. And I was saying, so like we were part where we were was about 90% totality of the eclipse today, which by the way, if you are into like magic-y witchy stuff, the eclipse is a great time to manifest, so put out those positive manifestations tonight. But I felt like people were aware of the eclipse and weren't really worried about it. And then in New Jersey, we had an earthquake, and they were all convinced that the eclipse would be the end of the world. To which confused me, because I was like, the end of the world in the tri-state area only? Because we were the only ones who like had an earthquake. It wasn't like the rest of the world. Well, Taiwan had a worse one, a very worse one. But it's not like Oklahoma was gonna also, or like where was like Montpelier in Vermont didn't also have an earthquake. Are they gonna be okay? Is it just us in New Jersey?
I was gonna say Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee all had crazy tornadoes that week too.
That's
right.
Totally unusual though. An earthquake's pretty uncommon for us, I will say it. But like people panicked a little. It was a little silly. So I would like to say, not only am I an earthquake survivor, but I'm also an eclipse survivor. And I only watched Twilight Eclipse once.
Oh my god!
And laughed at it.
Gosh,
that movie is
so thank you. I will be opening a GoFundMe for myself.
Oh my god.
Yeah, please send all our thoughts and prayers to Joan specifically.
Yes, thank you.
We pray you recover from this harsh time.
It was so bad.
I
learned my dog's an idiot because he ran to the front door like a stranger was making the building move. He's useless, and actually, really funny story. I shouldn't say this story because it puts a mark on me to be murdered and or robbed. One time my dog was barking at the door, as he does, because he heard someone coming in. It was my husband, and my husband thought it'd be funny for him to like run in and go booga booga booga, like kind of scared the dog. And he did that, and I go, why does it smell like shit?
No.
The dog pooped himself a little bit. He was so scared. So my dog is utterly useless in an emergency.
I was in the Path of Totality in 2017, and there's like a huge event space near me that had thousands of people there, and like the eclipse happened, totality happened, and a bunch of dogs just like turned and started biting people.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
Why'd
I
you
actually
turn off the
heard
lights?
that, yeah, dogs were going crazy today during that time.
That's really funny because I took my dog outside because I was like, is he gonna die if he looks at the sun? And I was like, and they're like, animals don't look at the sun because that's dumb. And I was like, you're right. We are the only stupid animals who look at the sun. And they're like, your pets might ask for dinner earlier because they're like, it's dark out now. Can you feed me?
Right? Where's my food?
Yet. Joke's on them. My dog's a grazer, and we put everything in puzzle bowls for him, so he doesn't get a dinner time.
That's hilarious.
Your chickens will go back into the coop like, oh, nighttime. Time to go to bed.
Tracks. Makes sense. And they're like, very short night. Did not enjoy.
Yeah. Hey, guys, is everybody else like exhausted this morning?
Yeah.
But I usually joke about Mercury in retrograde. So like the things is Mercury in retrograde is supposed to mess with communication and especially mess with technology. And
It messes with your life.
Yeah. But like I usually joke about it. And I'm like, because it's easier to blame a planet than anything. And I like lost a file at work. Like in the computer. And I say lost, I mean like IT took over my computer and they're like, it is nowhere. And I was like, oh, fine, I believe it. And the eclipse, it's making it worse. I believe it. Now I truly believe because it has inconvenienced my life extremely at this specific time period. So we use Teams at my job, and Teams really wants us to like update. And I'm like, I am not updating till after this Mercury is out of retrograde. I can't find any files.
I usually don't care about Mercury retrograde. I'm just like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. But this one, I had horrible week. My debit card info got used, so I had to get a new debit card. So that took all week. So that was fun. And then my car wouldn't start on Friday. I couldn't get it until yesterday. And then my engagement ring that was supposed to be back Friday, got it today, finally. Yay. So it's just like, oh, I got it on Eclipse Day. Oh, God. Crazy week.
Yeah.
I'm ready whenever you guys are.
Oh, I was going to say, that being said, would you like to jump right into the topic? Now that I've told my survival story.
That's too funny.
That's so also Mercury, and it's not. It's not.
I do have two videos. I'm going to talk a little bit first before playing them to explain what they are. I hope they don't make your headache any worse, Joan, because it is loud and high-pitched, weird noises. We'll put it that way. So
I told you my dog's useless in emergencies, and it's because he cries all the time. So it's fine.
Oh God,
worse than anything I've heard today.
Oh, poor puppy.
What's going on? Hang on 1 second. I'm trying to. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, so we're gonna put this there. I'm gonna do that. Okay.
I'm like so nervous with my headphones on. They're just gonna like blast my eardrums out.
I'm still getting used to these too, and it doesn't bother me because I don't have my glasses on today. But usually, like they push my glasses into my head, and it sucks. But contact. So tonight, I'm going to be talking about the Sierra Sounds by Ron Morehead. Pretty much what they are is a lot of people. Well, they're Bigfoot sounds, Sasquatch sounds, Yeti, whatever you want to call them. The big creatures in the forest, like the Patterson-Gimlin film. Ron Morehead's been on a few different shows. Missing 411 interviewed him, Dave Paullides, because of the sounds that he captured, because one of Dave Paullides' theories is that people go missing in certain national parks, especially the Pacific Northwest, because of Sasquatch or Bigfoot. So David Paullides is one of the few people that Ron actually brought to this little camp in the Sierras in California, in the Sierra Mountains, I think. So when people hear the term Sierra Sounds, most people wonder, like, what is that? And there are others who know, oh, those are Ron Morehead sounds. Ron Morehead's the man who ended up recording these amazing voices in the Sierra Mountains of California, not too far from Yosemite National Park. Usually I mess that word up. Keep in mind that the Patterson-Gimlin film was recorded not too far from the area in 1967. The Sierra Sounds would be recorded in September of 1971 by Ron Morehead and a couple of friends who asked him to come to the area that they were hunting a lot because they did not know what was like going on and what they were encountering. They kept hearing these crazy noises that they did not know, and these were hunters that had been hunting for a very long time. So they're like, oh, it's not a bear, it's not a cougar, it's not a deer. We can't figure out what these are. So Ron had the idea to bring an audio recorder after he was asked to come to the camp. I think he went there a few times and experienced it first, and then was like, we need to record this. And, you know, back then, the audio recorders, like these big clunky things, you couldn't put it in your pocket, you couldn't hide it anywhere. So not every person could get them back then either. They were a little bit more rare than now. You have one in your phone. No one in the hunting group were looking for Bigfoot and didn't even really know anything about the subject. The area where they had their camp was about 80 miles up a mountain that you cannot get anywhere near with a car or just hiking alone. A lot of the time you needed to be on horseback or muleback, or I don't know if you say muleback, I don't know, but on the back of a mule. Two of the group members thought it could be a hoax. They originally thought that there could have been people messing with them. That's one of the reasons that they decided to record some of the sounds so they could send them off to universities and stuff, because they were like, okay, we're out here trying to hunt deer and we don't tell anybody where our camp is, and we're getting these voices talking. They thought people were trying to scare them off so they could stay in that hunting area for the deer that they were catching, because they were killing. The deer that they were getting were huge deer that it was, how can I word this right? That you couldn't really, they were the type of bucks, people like to mount the heads on the walls and stuff. So they were trophy size. There we go. Trophy size deer. I couldn't think of the right word. The sounds that they were hearing terrified them. These men, were hunters. They'd been growing up in the area and hunting in that same area for years. And they didn't match any animal they knew, like I was saying. They also experienced things in the camp being moved and taken. Bread would be taken out of a backpack, out of the plastic bag with the little twist tie. And they couldn't figure out why that happened. Obviously, a bear can't do that. Because of the sounds, they decided to make a shelter between several trees. So there were, these big trees, and they used cut logs and made a shelter around, and then had this really big log that they tied into the shelter so nothing could get into it, unlike tents and stuff. So it was a literal shelter that they lined up the branches and stuff. It's maybe I didn't think to save a picture. Maybe I'll look for one. So it was a makeshift lock so nothing could just get in. They had an old wood burning stove that they brought out there, and anything else in the 70s that you would bring to a campsite to stay for a few days or a week or two. Okay, so how it started and what they experienced. So the trailhead started at 6,400 feet in elevation. The first 2 miles up the mountain was the biggest challenge. Then they would get off of the trail to where there was no trail and continued to climb up 10,000 feet. They had to climb across a canyon and ravines. They would also take different ways so that other people and hikers could not follow their tracks, because they didn't want anybody else to find where, their area. Their area was plentiful with deer, and they didn't want anyone to find it. So the deer population wasn't destroyed, because a lot of the times with hunting, it'll get like over hunted, and then the population of deer like drops dramatically, and then you can't really hunt over there anymore. For a while, all the hunters experienced was like seeing black figures like towards the back of the woods, peering out behind trees at them. They would get rocks thrown at them from time to time. Then they started to hear these weird sounds coming from across the creek bed that their camp was by. It started with weird like yowls and whining noises to be like a little bit more like a aggressive chatter is what it's called. Then one day they found a huge 18-inch bear footprint impression in the mud, and they did cast it too. I'm not. I think Ron still has the cast of that one particular one, but they also cast several other footprints. The Warren brothers are the ones that started going there to hunt for, I think, 15 to 20 years. In August of 1971 was the turning point for them. One night after eating dinner, they went into their shelter to sleep, and like all hunters, they slept with their pistols and rifles loaded and at their sides. They started to hear banging and clambering around outside, like their pots and pans in the stove. It sounded like something was getting into the kitchen area and was destroying everything. Their first thought was that it had to be a bear. After a few minutes, one of the men decided that they were going to go scare it off with, their rifle. As soon as he got to the door of the shelter, they started to hear these guttural grunts and snarls and what sounded like teeth chattery or teeth popping. Then they heard what sounded like a disagreement between two creatures and like chest beating is from what they were saying. This went on for about a half an hour. They decided to just wait until the morning to go out and see what happened. When they went out in the morning, all the pots and pans were strewn all over the area, and the food they had was all gone, but nothing was torn up like a bear or an animal would do. So there were no like claw marks, nothing ripped. They also noticed 2 more 18-inch bear footprints. The men decided that these creatures were way bigger than what they thought, and they tried to think of something they could do to get them to come back so they could actually see them. So pretty much they started hearing these noises across this creek bed from where they've been staying for weeks on end for years, and they couldn't figure it out. Like, what are these noises? We don't understand. And then they would hear the them messing with their kitchen stuff. And there's actually a couple times where Ron was talking about how they would hear like their camp was getting destroyed, but they would go out there and everything would be where it was. It sounded like pans were getting thrown against rocks and trees, but everything was perfectly in its place. So they couldn't figure out why that happened. And
Sorry,
then
you said that, and the scene from Tarzan came up with the like you. Please just start.
Trash on the can.
Sorry.
oh my
That's
god,
that's
fine.
fine. But that's all I
That's
could
too
think
funny.
of.
I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head tonight now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I'm so sorry.
funny. No, you're good.
I feel like they like walked out and it was fine, and it's like.
Oh god. Yeah, so that's like what kind of started all of this. I know they took cameras out there like after a while, but they could never really get clear pictures or video. They only were able to catch the audio, which they had the audio device they put up like in a tree after some time, because at first they had it with them in the shelter just to record the sound that they were hearing. So on the videos that I'm going to play, I think one of them, you can hear them talking, and you can tell they're right there by the audio device. But then you can hear the Bigfoot or Sasquatch in the background, whatever they're talking about. And people have analyzed this as well, and tried to like figure out what it would be. So I know I have to share my screen. Okay. Chrome tab. So select a tab. Oh, Okay. Share. Okay.
There you go.
Nice.
All right. So this is one of the clips. Those are them.
Hear them across the creek with the big rock. Probably like the fall. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So did you hear how you could hear them clearly, and then you could hear stuff like in the background, and they were trying to copy them? So what they would do is they would kind of mimic them to form communication and trust. So they would make noises and then they would copy, and that would go on for hours. I think in totality there's 2 or 3 hours of this type of recording. And there's
I'm just
go ahead.
I'm surprised at the sound they make.
Oh yeah.
The one kind of sounded like it was doing an impersonation of Foghorn Leghorn a little bit to me. It was like, I say.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Well, also, like, a lot of people say some of it sounds like old samurais. This one's called the samurai chatter because of the dictations and the phonetics of it. So that's what they feel that one sounds like. Because there's a lot of these, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to play these like all night. Which ones are, I think are the coolest? So that was one of them. And then this one, this one's kind of loud, and it says rapid fire sequence sounds. So this will give an idea of later on when I talk about one of the linguists that analyze these. So I'm going to play this one real quick.
If you think you're playing it, it's not playing. Just so you know.
What'd you say?
Are you playing it right now? Or are you
Yeah.
looking for it? Sorry.
No, I'm playing it. You guys can't hear it?
Oh, nope. No. You have to switch I would stop sharing and then share again. Sorry. I was like, You're not hearing it.
It's okay. All right, so...
We all just stand here like, yeah. It's very quiet, this one.
I'm still learning. Okay, so...
No, you're fine. It probably did not make it obvious to you. But I was just like, nope.
There we go, this one. Share. Okay.
Nice, okay.
At least you told me.
Yeah. This one right here.
Now imagine hearing that in the middle of the freaking night.
I do have a husband, so maybe.
I don't know if you guys heard it, but you can hear one of the hunters say, "That's not nice," because they were actually communicating and like interacting back and forth. Because they would do that, like leave gifts for each other, or they could see them kind of across the creek. But if they even thought about getting a picture or video, they would. Whoop, as I drop something, they would go in different directions.
Are these all in the Sierra Mountains, all of them?
Yes, there's one particular area that only a few people have actually been to. I didn't check the number of people, but the most recent person was, like I was saying, Dave Paullides. He has Missing 411, The Hunted is the film on Amazon Prime. So if you watch that, I think it's towards the later part of the middle of it, or towards the end. He interviews Ron Morehead, and they're at the camp, and they play the sounds and everything like that.
The reason I ask is, so if I am correct, which I might not be, I believe I've heard before that dogs in different parts of the world bark differently. Like they bark with an accent. So I wonder, because we do have different sightings of things that are Sasquatch-like Florida skunk ape, the Yeti of different places. I wonder if they would communicate slightly differently based on the fact that they're in a different region.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that is something that, I mean, you could say the Bigfoot community does talk about, because in like the Tennessee or Appalachian Mountains, like Kim was talking about the one day, they're all over the world, and they Ron has brought these recordings to hundreds of expos or conferences, whatever you want to say, and only a few people have heard the exact same stuff. They say they've heard similar but a little bit different, like the samurai chatter one. That one is I think that's the unique one to his recordings. But a lot of the other sounds that he has, a lot of other Bigfoot researchers have heard before. And again, that was just, a small snippet. That was like 3 or 4 minutes of the 2 or 3 hours worth of audio recordings that he has.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they're...
Those were...
Go ahead.
Were those when they were right outside the tent, then?
The first one was when they were, I think around the camp area. The second one I played was in there. They called it the microphone tree. So they had a microphone up in this tree.
Oh.
Okay. And then they were recording it, I think by the camp, because they tried to stay in their designated area, not to upset them, because if they started encroaching on their territory, they wouldn't interact with them for weeks. So they tried to stay in their little area and interact from there. And then also the one said Al Berry on it as well. That is the first, I guess you could say, 100% skeptic that went to the camp. He actually went there on purpose to try and make sure that this was a hoax. Which I think I'm going to actually get into that. Yep, I'm going to get into that right now. So now that everybody's gotten an idea of what I'm talking about, you can find them like on YouTube, and then they're also in a few different films, like the Missing 411, The Hunted. Ron actually has them on his website. He has 2 different CDs that you could buy if you wanted to hear all of them. So there's that option too. I think it's ronmorehead.com. I'll check that before we cite it. So the research and the witnesses for this. Since the hunters had recordings of these creatures, they decided to try and contact experts for some type of help or answers. One of the men that they wrote a very long letter to was Dr. Ivan Sanderson. He was the founder of the Society of Investigation of the Unexplained. That's a mouthful. Dr. Sanderson forwarded the letters to Peter Byrne, a widely recognized Bigfoot researcher in Oregon. On the things one of the things that he was known for was trying to prove the existence of the Yeti in the Himalayas. Unfortunately, Peter's funding only allowed him to reach the area of Oregon and Washington, so he wasn't able to go to the Sierras with his funding and stuff. I think this was in the 71, so this was a long time ago. So he sent Al Berry, a reporter working for the Redding Record Searchlight newspaper in Redding, California. I think that's how you say it, Redding, Redding. Alan,
the Redding, Vermont, and said that way, so that's what I would assume.
Oh, okay. Alan thought that the claims were too unbelievable at the time and were probably a hoax, and it was assumed someone was pretty much like faking it. And this was, in the early 70s. So just hearing something like this way back then, you'd be like, what? And it'd probably freak you out. Nowadays, like, oh, yeah, I did it. Or something like that. Or people manipulated it with computers. But back then, you didn't hear stuff like this. So Al decided to meet the group in Modesto to interview each hunter separately and listen to the recordings that the group had brought for him that year. The interviews, my brain just farted. The interviews, the recordings convinced Al to make a trip to go with them to the spot where all this was happening in the summer of 1971. To this day, Al cannot disprove or debunk anything, even though that was what he set out to do during that trip. He ended up going out there regularly with the men and had contact of his own while out there with the creatures. And one of the guys that I was actually talking about before, the linguist, he is in the Missing 411 The Hunted. I believe they interviewed him in that. And then he was also in this film called A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. That's on actually YouTube right now for free, but it's also on Amazon Prime. And that's if you're into Sasquatch, Bigfoot stuff, very, very good film. And they actually just came out with another one called A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, Paranormal Bigfoot. And there's some really cool evidence in that one. So the man's name is Scott Nelson. He is one of the most credible witnesses and analysts to analyze the tapes. He spent 20 years in the Navy as a cryptolinguist. His specialties were Russian, Spanish, and Persian. He spent 25 years teaching those languages after retiring from the Navy. In 2008, Scott's son decided, pretty much how he found out about this is Scott's son decided to do a paper for school on Bigfoot. I think he was like 12. And, when you're that age, you're kind of just like, oh, I want to do something cool. So he decided on Bigfoot. So they started searching the internet for like Bigfoot stuff. And in 2008, I think the internet was like not new, but it's not like today. So they didn't really have like pages and pages and pages of stuff like today. So they found the sounds and he played them. When he played Ron's sounds that came up in the search, he was shocked. He played it over and over and over again and realized that it was a language and it was not a human. So because of his like extensive Navy career of being a cryptolinguist and translating and understanding languages that weren't English, he pretty much was like, this is not a person. So it says that he slowed it down and listened to it like at a slow pace, and at a slow pace, and it is. What was that?
There was a car revving outside my window.
Okay, I was like,
We,
oh, that's
sorry. Yeah, I live right on this road, and these cars just go by at like 70, just like.
Oh,
anyway.
That's funny. Okay,
Sorry.
You
No,
need
you're
to
good.
put the record light out there so they know.
Right.
Please be quiet.
Now recording. Please be quiet. So, anyways, so Scott decided, he decided to slow it down and listen to it like really slowly, and that's when he was like, this is a language, and he had to analyze this like further, because since that's like what he did in the Navy, was he would record all these different languages, slow them down, and then figure them out for the Navy. Let's see. So after some time of listening to what was online, he was able to get in touch with other researchers who helped him get in touch with Ron. He played the tapes to multiple people from different countries to see what they thought. So Scott was able to get copies of the tapes from Ron, and so he went around and played these tapes for people and asked them, like, what do you think about this? What do you think this is? This one guy who was Japanese said that one of the sounds sounded just like ancient Japanese, like the dictation, I think, and the phonetics of it. Every person he played it for said it sounded like there were parts of their own language in it. Like, and one of the ones that I played, I think it was from the first one, when they're going back and forth, like going wah wah and like copying each other, there was this one part, it sounds like it says number 1 to me. So I think that's interesting, because out of all of the ones I've listened to, it's the only like Englishy type word that I heard, and it sounded like it says number 1. Like, that makes no sense to me. But now I understand what he was talking about, why like trying to get different people's opinions on this to see if it sounded anything like their language. He said that the Russians, Persians, Spanish, and Japanese were all the people that he played this for. Scott was also trained in communications deception. He said that there is apparent communication from like one person to another in this, which you can clearly hear. Like, there's 2 different beings talking. They sound different. The way that their speech pattern is different. There's also I think they're called inflections in the sounds, which is like the sounds you make when you make a demand or ask a question or get excited, make a statement. So the different inflections of that, like when you ask a question, how your voice gets, or when you're making a demand to somebody, how your voice gets. He said he heard a lot of that in all the recordings, as well as expression of emotion is apparent in a lot of them, such as like anger. Then there's one where you can tell that they're joking around, so there's like humor in it. And then curiosity is another emotion he can hear in the language. And the last one I played, I'm sure you guys could hear like the aggravatedness in it. It was just like talking really, really fast, and then somebody in the background was like, well, that's not very nice.
Mm-hmm.
So the articulation of the phonemes, there we go, are the same as humans, with several extra sounds that he has never heard a human make. The sounds are much higher and much lower than what a human is capable of doing. It even has like infrasound and I think it's intrasound. So the really deep guttural sounds that tigers make when they growl, or a few other big cats, they have infrasound when they are aggravated. So usually when you're like around a big cat, even if you don't see it, when they make that really, really low sound, your hair stands up and your heart starts to beat faster. It's because your body is picking up the resonance of said infrasound. And there's been cases of... Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's the same when they purr. So cats purring is another example of that. Like their whole
Yeah.
body moves with it, and that's not something we necessarily do.
Yeah.
Cats will purr to show enjoyment, but also as a comfort.
Yeah.
So that vibration makes them feel more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, pretty much the exact same thing. And it's just interesting knowing that like some people, they don't even know anything's around them and they'll get really sick, like a really, really bad headache or a stomach ache. And then they'll find out later that there was a Bigfoot sighting not far from there. There's been, I think, hundreds of cases of that. So one of the theories is that the Bigfoot sees the person and, I don't know, makes the infrasound, and then that person gets uncomfortable and wants to leave the area.
I would like to say if a Bigfoot is causing my seasonal allergies, I would like to kindly ask him to stop.
I was gonna say, don't you have a headache right now?
I have a headache and my tummy feels a little weird, and like I don't like that. So please stop. With peace and love, stop it.
I would love to like experience that out in the woods one day, like just out of nowhere feel something like that and then be like, oh, I wonder if it's a Bigfoot. But I'm me, so
I was gonna say, as someone whose like husband's blood sugar has suddenly gone very low while hiking, I don't like any medical things happening in the woods. I'm not a fan, personally.
God, that sucks. My stepdad's does that too, so I get
We
the
had
feeling.
to ask a strange family for gummies, or like we're like, do you have any like food? So like we just bring his like, and they're like, we have homemade gummies, and I was like, okay, sure, we'll go with those. They had kids, so we assumed they were okay. This is before like weed was legal here. No, we're assuming.
I was gonna say he's gonna feel good either way,
right?
Yeah. I was like, what do you mean they're homemade? Where'd you get the gelatin from?
Right.
Did you homemake the gelatin? I don't like that. So sorry, go on.
No, it's okay.
I hope you have what you want out of that experience. I don't think it's an experience we all want.
I was going to ask if anybody has an estimate, if you know, Jessiy, on like how many Bigfoots.
And some people say big
Bigfoot-i.
feats.
Big feats there are in the U.S.
I mean, there's estimates. With the research and theories, they live like a long time, like hundreds, maybe thousands of years. That's one of the reasons why we don't find any bodies, because they don't really die like we do, which that would be freaking nice. But there's like an estimate of, if you do like I think it's like the topography of the areas of where they're seen a lot and then how many sightings, they say that's estimated to be at least 10 to 20,000, I think, in the US. It might be more. I think certain areas like the Pacific Northwest, which I know you're kind of in that area, is like prime for Sasquatch. Same with like British Columbia and like Canada. Appalachian Mountains, kind of, but like certain areas, obviously, because it's so hard for humans to get to certain areas, they are seen a lot more often than like, I mean, I'm in Illinois. It's boring and flat here, and there's nowhere to hide, really. So I wouldn't expect really to see a Sasquatch around my area. But in the mountains, like where I'm going this week at the Ozarks, there's a lot of sightings of Sasquatch. Last year when we went, we actually brought stuff to offer to Sasquatch where we were staying, because there were a couple sightings that weren't far from our cabin where we're staying. So we're going to do that again this year. I think like,
nice. Yeah, it's really popular up by me. I know, especially if you go a little bit more towards the beach and a little bit more north, you start seeing Sasquatch stuff all over. I can't tell you how many like I break for Sasquatch or I break for Bigfoot bumper stickers I see. It's all over here. So
that is
like,
so
I wonder
funny.
how many they think are actually over here.
Yeah, I know there's quite a few. There are people that have seen the same ones, different people, because they'll like do sketches like, oh, what did you see? And like several different people sketched like the exact same looking Bigfoot, or not sketch it. They, have an artist sketch it for them. And it looks almost exactly the same. So it's like you take that into account. Also, so the ones that Ron Morehead recorded, it was a family. So I think there were two or three males, two or three females, and then there was at least one like child and one like juvenile. So in one of the recordings, you can hear the higher pitch noise, and they were saying that was because the little one wanted to interact with them, and like the dad was like, "No, you cannot do that." And then the little one's like all high pitched and hyper and talking really fast, and then the dad's like, "Oh, no, 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 no!" Like you can hear the differences in their voices, and that's what Ron and the hunters said pretty much was happening. Was the little one wanted to go interact with the humans, and the dad was like, "No, you're not allowed to do that." So I think I played that one. I can't remember, but that's definitely interesting hearing the differences in the vocal patterns and the tones and stuff. Which that's why Scott Nelson believes that. What?
I just have this image of like a teenager Sasquatch, like, I want to talk to the humans, Dad, like Little Mermaid, wearing.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Somebody dropped. He's like, "We're not like the humans. It's not a phase, Dad."
Part of your world.
It's the only amount I will allow you to sing as HR and legal department, which I am not with the legal department.
That's probably good. Yeah, Disney's going to come after us now for sure.
Oh my God. Oh God.
Sasquatch.
But when is the little Sasquatch movie coming out? I mean, I'm excited.
They have to have one.
Have you guys
there's
seen
Missing Link.
Have you seen Harry and the Hendersons?
Oh
Of
God.
course. Classic.
It's a classic. Oh, what was that other one? No, that wasn't it. Oh, I've got one in my head and I can't think of the name of it. There are some movies that were based off of Sasquatch too that a lot of people don't realize. I should have researched that. I didn't think to do that.
There's one that came out like fairly. Was it the Harry and the Hendersons? There's like one that came out recently, and I don't think it did that well.
There was
Animated.
Missing Link, which is like a stop motion animation film,
Maybe it was that one.
and Hugh Jackman is in that.
Oh, Jacked Man, like that guy.
Hugh Jackman, yeah. But shout out Leica Studios
we call
right
him
here in
Benjamin
the
Cumberbatch.
beautiful Pacific Northwest.
Oh, okay.
It's in Hillsboro, Oregon.
Oh, nice.
I've tried to apply there many times. Anyway,
You guys are good. It's okay. I'm almost finished anyways, but pretty much every scientist or specialist that has listened to these sounds has not been able to give a reason why it is not a language. So everybody that's listened to it has pretty much been like, that's a language, and they try to disprove it that it's not one, but they can't disprove it. The frequencies and the resonance in them are also not human. There are frequencies and resonances that we are not capable of creating or making. The rate of the utterance is at least 2 to 3 times faster than any human is capable as well. A couple, I think 2 universities that did studies on these was Idaho University and Stanford University. Those were the 2 that I could find. I know there's been more because Ron's talked about it, but I didn't write any of that down. And then one of the last things is this last person. His name is Joe Hauser. He's a certified arboreturist. I'm actually not sure what that is. I think it has to do with like survival skills or something. Because he's also like a certified utility specialist and then primitive living skills and outdoor survival instructor. So he's kind of like Russell Acord from Expedition Bigfoot.
An arborist or an arboreturist? Because tree, something with trees.
Yeah.
Something with
Okay.
trees.
Okay.
Like Arbor Day is Tree Day.
Oh.
Something with trees.
Did not know that.
yeah,
Learned something
arborists a lot of time they'll take core samples from trees to see how old they are and things like that.
new. Oh, okay. Interesting. Learned something new.
I couldn't tell if you're saying arborist or arboreturist, and I was like, someone who tours trees, maybe? They're like, ho, fancy with the word. Another fun fact, my husband has this weird skill of like, and he's not always right, but he says it confidently enough that I think he's right, that you can say like this kind of scientist, like you'd be like a bug scientist, and he will come up with the name for it.
Oh my
It's
god.
like, it's just Latin. I'm like, yeah, like we all know just Latin.
That's awesome, actually. That's so funny. Well, yeah, that's where like a lot of our words even come from, is from Latin. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So Joe he's got multiple degrees from California universities as well, like a couple bachelor degrees, associate degrees, and I believe a master's. So on September 28th, 2003, Ron and him went to the camp so he could experience the phenomena himself and study it just like the others that like asked to study it. So pretty much what he concluded is the mountaintop area is extremely remote and cannot be accessed easily unless on horseback or on foot, which on foot could take over a day to get there. It is nowhere near any recreational areas or trails. The ground and pine duff, D-U-F-F, cover in the overgrowth of the forest was so thick that it would be apparent if somebody had disturbed it. So like the natural area where like the pine needles fall and the leaves fall, if something or somebody disturbed it, you'd be able to see it. There are also no indications that it had been dug up or moved to hide like any speakers or wiring or any type of amplification devices. Because that was one of the things that a lot of people are like, oh, they put speakers out there to make people hear these sounds that they made up. And so many people went out there to disprove or to prove that it was a hoax like that, and nobody could prove it. The only area that looked used by man was the camp itself. There were no places for any human to get to without leaving a disturbance, which no disturbance was found besides by the camp area. His initial conclusion of the investigation was that there was no evidence of any speaker or amplifying device that could have been used at the camp to make the sounds that Al and Ron recorded in 1971 and 1972. And Al Berry is the reporter that went out there to make sure that it was a hoax, and he could not disprove it or debunk it. And even to this day, he still can't figure out how it would have been faked. Because of the lack of evidence, he believes that the sounds were recorded of an unidentified species that inhabits the remote wilderness area of that general region. So that was pretty much a primitive, survivalist that knows a lot about the outdoors and nature and how to survive. And he could not find any trace of like man in certain areas where the sounds were recorded. One of the things with Bigfoot too is they say that it like can phase in and out of like our dimension kind of. So like how they heard the pots and pans being moved around and like thrown around, and then they go out and they were all perfectly in place. They couldn't figure that out. And then there were times where it was the opposite, where they heard the camp getting trashed and stuff was strewn all over, but nothing was like ripped, and there were no claw marks. And then finding the empty bread bag that had the twist tie on it that was out of the backpack, but the backpack wasn't torn open. So a lot of different things that I find very interesting about this like case, I guess you could say. Ron's got a few different books out as well. I used one of them. It's called Voices in the Wilderness by Ron Morehead, and it's on his website. I bought it actually last week to do a little bit final research before the topic. So that's pretty much
so
it.
I have a hot take. I think that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, however they like to identify, is a little bit rude that they go through people's stuff, but then when we get close, they will not talk to us. I think that is a little rude. I'm just going to say that.
Oh, God. I think everybody finds it hilarious that it happens too.
No, it's just a little rude. I'm just saying. I'd say the same thing, though, about poltergeists who, like, open drawers and, like, throw plates. I'm like, that's rude. Put it back.
Come on. Yeah.
That's just obnoxious. You're a little rude. If you want attention, we can find better methods.
That's true.
Oh god, that's too funny.
Yeah, that's my hot take about that, at least. I'm just saying, like, just be a little bit, just, like, let me take a photo, and then you can eat all my bread.
Oh, they're
Right.
like, no paparazzi, please. No paparazzi.
Oh, that's too funny. Anybody got any questions or anything, or you good?
I have no questions.
It sounds.
Thank you so much for all of that. It was great. I'm not rushing you off because of anything else besides the fact that I'm woozy.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, we're going to go into final thoughts. I will say I do not believe that this was live. I checked Twitch and YouTube, and it didn't look like we went live, but this is recorded.
Okay.
So, just so you all know. That being said, would we like to move into our final thoughts? I will go last in Frank's stead.
I can go first if nobody else wants to go first.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
There is a Bigfoot museum in Boring, Oregon. So I should go and get y'all keychains.
I've heard about that museum actually, or like little stop.
Field trip.
Yes.
Charlie, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So, I just said before we got on, I just went on a 8-mile hike, just kind of randomly today, but in the Oregon side of the Columbia River Gorge, absolutely gorgeous. Can't recommend it enough. But we're just hiking. We're seeing lots and lots of other people, and then we got up to like the peak elevation. There's probably still like 200 feet of mountain above us, but there was just nobody out there, and we were just hearing this little like whoop, 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 sound, like this really deep kind of sound all around us, and I filmed it, so hopefully I'll be able to hear it.
Nice.
It was just like totally random. I completely even forgot what the topic was today, but it just lined up like that. So
that's awesome.
They know.
All right,
Jessiy.
Oh, my final thoughts? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
You've had a lot of thoughts, but
yeah, I was gonna say I've talked a lot today. I guess my final thoughts are pretty much that I find this fascinating. I only found out about the Sierra Sounds like maybe 3 years ago, and the first time I heard them, like my jaw dropped, and I wanted to know more and learn more. And then finding, like Ron's been on so many podcasts and stuff too. So whenever I see that he's on, I get very excited because I love hearing it from his perspective, because he talks about a lot more than just what I covered. I just covered the basics, but there's so much more. So go find more information on this subject because there's a lot of it.
Thank you. So before I go into my final thought, I'd first like to thank Jessiy for this topic and doing all the research. It was very interesting. And it was also nice knowing what's afflicting me, that it is not the pollen in the air, but the Sasquatch that is stalking me. And I will be taking legal courses. I also want to remind everyone that you can listen to us wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us live every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Pacific. 7 or 6? 7. If you want to hang out an hour before, that's fine too. 7 p.m. I can do math. I can't do math. I can do math. I can't do math. It's the Sasquatch too. Takes away your math. Jessiy forgot to mention that, but they do that. They give you dyscalculia. Anyway, you can watch us back on YouTube at any time by searching us up at Late Night Legends. If you just want us in small doses, if we're too much at once, understandable. You can also find us on our TikTok. We also have Instagram. Find us at Late Night Legends Podcast. If you have made it this far in the video version of this, well, also rate and review wherever you can, specifically Spotify and Anchor, and Apple does a lot of that, so that'd be great. Tell a friend, tell your mother, but not too much, just enough. And if you've gotten this far in the video, I would like you to comment what you would offer Sasquatch in order to get rid of your seasonal allergies. My final thoughts are, my father-in-law is from Kentucky in the Appalachians. So I just want to say, do not go looking for Bigfoot there, because it might just be my husband's cousins making moonshine. So don't go looking too much. There's a great mockumentary that kind of follows that same plot line called 15 Things You Didn't Know About Bigfoot. Number 1 will surprise you, and I highly recommend it. It is hilarious.
Oh my god.
It's done like a Vice documentary, so I highly suggest it.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, that being said, thank you all for watching, and we hope to hear from you soon in whatever Sierra Sound-esque way you would like to talk to us.
That's not very nice.
Nice.
Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Bigfoot, Bigfoot.